Losing it. I must confess, I have never seen a Star Wars film or Star Trek film. Couldn't tell you if there is a difference between the two. And it's just...
All right, well, other people at his rallies who work for Doge, who work for Elon Musk's organization, talked about those issues.
No, I was at the rally. Not one of them said that.
It was supposed to be a typical afternoon on CNN, an hour of political discussion, policy breakdowns, and the usual back and forth between mainstream narratives and invited expert opinion. But what unfolded live on air this past Tuesday turned into one of the most unexpected and uncomfortable moments in recent cable news memory.
John Boyega, Star Wars fans are racist, white elitist, and the film has occupied the whitest space.
It's like a black person existing in that was something, and you can always tell it's something when some Star Wars fans try to say, well, we had Lando Calrissian and had Samuel L. Jackson.
A CNN host, known for her confrontational style and progressive leanings, found herself being publicly fact-checked by one of her own guests, and not just in passing. The correction was direct, data-driven, and delivered with such clarity that it left the host visibly flustered. What followed was a wave of reaction online, with viewers from both sides of the aisle weighing in. But perhaps most noticeable of all was the reaction from the left, many of whom didn't take kindly to the moment of accountability. The host in question was Elena Marsh, a senior anchor at CNN and one of the more prominent faces of their afternoon political
there are many
programming.
people who are not getting social service programs, especially people with disabilities. Are you going to do anything to stop what's happening?
You probably deserved it.
I deserved it.
Known for her sharp tone and confident delivery, Marsh has built a reputation as a staunch critic of conservative policies and Republican lawmakers. Her show, Policy Frontline, often features a mix of panelists, some invited for agreement, others for tension. But this time it was one of her so-called neutral guests who ended up taking her to task. The segment began with a discussion about the recent federal report on employment growth. Marsh opened with a bold claim that under the current administration job creation had not only improved but had outpaced the previous 10 years combined. She framed this as a clear sign of progressive economic competency, contrasting it with what she described as the stagnation of conservative economic leadership. Her voice was firm, her tone unwavering. Her guest, Dr. Marcus Elwood, is a respected economist and former advisor to both Democratic and Republican administrations.
Talked about those issues.
No, I was at the rally. Not one of them said that. That's what protesters said, but nobody there actually said that.
Do you think that there are risks here?
There are. People believe the lies.
Though he typically keeps a low media profile, his data-driven work has made him a go-to analyst in policy circles. Invited to provide perspective on the numbers, Elwood began by agreeing that job growth had improved in some sectors. But then he paused, and that's when everything shifted. Respectfully, Elena Wood said, "That claim isn't accurate." Marsh blinked, caught off guard.
Is it going to be enough? My voice is inadequate. My efforts today are inadequate to stop what they're trying to do. But we, the people, are powerful. We are...
Which part? She asked. Elwood leaned forward slightly. The idea that job growth under this administration has outpaced the previous 10 years combined, it's simply not supported by the data. In fact, if we look at the Bureau of Labor Statistics, we see that total job creation from 2010 to 2020 was approximately 22 million. Since 2021, we've added just under 14 million jobs, many of which were recoveries from pandemic losses, not new market expansions. There was a moment of silence, a stillness that felt longer than it probably was. Marsh tried to recover, suggesting that perhaps he was interpreting the numbers in a different context. But Elwood didn't budge. "No," he said calmly. "These aren't interpretations. They're direct figures from the Department of Labor. What we're seeing now is a rebound, not an unprecedented boom. That's not to say it's bad news, but it's not what you framed it as either." Visibly rattled, Marsh attempted to pivot, asking about unemployment figures and wage growth. But Elwood continued to ground his answers in official reports, careful to avoid partisan language while sticking to the facts. As he spoke, viewers on social media began reacting. Hashtags started trending. #FactCheckLive, #CNNCorrection, and #ElwoodTruth were among the top political tags within the hour. Clips of the exchange began circulating, and with it came a flood of commentary. Interestingly, the most vocal reactions didn't come from the usual conservative outlets. While right-leaning commentators praised Elwood for bringing the truth to CNN, the more passionate outrage came from progressive circles. Many viewers took to Twitter to criticize Elwood, accusing him of undermining the host, platforming right-wing narratives, or failing to support the administration during a crucial economic recovery. Some even called for CNN to apologize for allowing a guest to embarrass